This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All righty, there he is, Ira. And tell me, man, how impressed were you with Shaq and Kobe Part 2 in Philadelphia last night, huh? How impressed were you with James Harden in a big moment once again?
You know what? I don't know if I was impressed. Honestly, Big O, I'm more terrified. And I'm working on this for my Sunday column for the Sun Sentinel. You can say what you want.
I know
there's a chance the Heat are number 1 and the Nets are number 8, and you and I are reliving the Allen Houston shot all over again. Oh, I want you to take your emotion out of it. I know that you're a Heat fan, and you've been there from day one. You've been in the locker room. You've been a Heat beat person when radio had Heat beat people. If you had to bet your mortgage, if you had to bet something important to you, something meaningful to you on a Heat Nets first round series, who would you put your money on? Honestly,
Miami.
You would, over Brooklyn.
Yes, the better coaching staff, the better defensive disposition from beginning to end, the deeper team. Philadelphia does not possess any of those traits. They are not proven.
No, I'm talking over the Nets. I'm talking over Brooklyn.
But what I'm telling you is what they faced last night is nothing like what they're going to face in Miami. They're going to face a much mentally tougher team, a much better defensive team, a much deeper team, and maybe the best coach in the NBA, period.
Okay.
Eric Spoelstra. So,
Your Honor, let me rephrase. We'll play a little Big O game show here as you sit there at Acura Pembroke Pines.
I'm cocky.
In the first round of the NBA playoffs, who would you prefer to play? The Brooklyn Nets or Toronto Raptors?
Oh, the Raptors. I want the easier matchup. In the first round
of the NBA playoffs, who would you prefer to play? The Brooklyn Nets or the Atlanta Hawks?
The Hawks.
In the first round of the NBA playoffs, Mr. Orlando Alzugaray, who would you prefer to play? The Brooklyn Nets or the Cleveland Cavaliers?
The Cavs.
In the first round of the playoffs, Mr. Alzugaray, sir, who would you rather play, the Brooklyn Nets or the Boston Celtics?
The Celtics. They're soft. They haven't proven anything.
This is a bunch of BS that you bust your ass for an entire season to get the number 1 seed. You play through injuries. You play through COVID. You play through everything. And the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 seeds could wind up with less treacherous matchups. Already today, Zach Lowe at ESPN.com and over at The Ringer, same thing. Kevin O'Connor, both have said the same thing. If ever there is a reason to let NBA top seeds draft their opponent, this should be the year for this reason. And as I'm writing in my Sunday column, The Sun Sentinel, in 1999, the Knicks were a bad team through most of the season because Latrell Sprewell was out with a fracture, missed about 2 months, sort of similar to what Kevin Durant went through with his knee. Yeah. All of a sudden, we get to the playoffs. The Heat are a number 1 seed. The Knicks are number 8.
All the way into the finals.
Now, granted, it was best of 5, not best of 7. And the shorter the series, the better chance for an upset. And I get all that. And clearly, the ball did not go off Terry Porter and should have been the Heat ball before Allen Houston ever hits his little leaner ducking in front of Dan Marley. All of that said, I'm sorry. Eric Spoelstra, of course, will never say it. No one on the Heat will say it. But this sucks. It just sucks that you could have a terrific season a year after going out the first round of the playoffs and arguably face the biggest first-round challenge in either conference. I know it's circumstance, but still.
I get that. I get all of that. Do you think they're sitting there afraid of the matchup? Afraid of the challenge?
I think they're sitting there concerned. And if there is a way, and I don't think there will be, on April 10th in Orlando, if they could maneuver out of it, and they can't for this reason, Big O. And I'm going to explain the play-in again for everyone else listening out there. In the NBA play-in, the number 7 and 8 seeds play a 1-game showdown for the number 7 seed. Right now, it'll be Brooklyn at Toronto. Right now, Ontario does not allow Kyrie Irving, an unvaccinated player, to play. Now, we're still a month away from April 12th and the start of the play-in. The whole world seems to be changing, so who knows? But if Toronto holds home court, because Nick Nurse also is a hell of a coach, then you're going to have the loser of that game, number 7 and 8, let's say it's Brooklyn, play the winner of 9 and 10, which right now would be Charlotte and Atlanta, and I think it would be Atlanta. And I think Brooklyn, as the home team, assuming Kyrie plays at home, Brooklyn's changing their rules also, probably emerge at number 8. So what I'm saying is this. The Heat, the last day of the season, can't say, well, if we lose, we're number 2, because they don't know if Brooklyn's going to be 7 or 8. You won't know that until that Tuesday night when Brooklyn plays in Toronto, most likely. Look, perfect world is this. Brooklyn pushes past Cleveland for number 6. 5 games behind with 15 remaining is a long haul. The Heat can help that tonight if they beat Cleveland at FTX Arena. That would be the perfect world. Then the Heat are just playing for 1 or 2. They have the tiebreaker in Philly. They have the tiebreaker in Milwaukee. They have the tiebreaker in Chicago. It would make life a lot easier. All I'm saying is after I watched that, and I kept turning my head to the side like, no, the Nets look freaking fantastic. And that's without the defensive input of Ben Simmons, who will be back for the playoffs.
No, I get all of that. But again, I don't fear Ben Simmons either because he's afraid of his own shadow. So how am I going to be worried about this? And again, I just I
Okay,
get it.
but Mr. Orlando
I
Alzugaray
understand.
again.
I understand it's a tough matchup. I understand they've got a couple really talented players on that team. I understand all of that. But are they a team? And that's what I don't say.
You know what? Players win playoff series. Go-to men win playoff series. Who's the better player, Kevin Durant or Jimmy Butler?
No, Kevin Durant.
Who's the better player, Kyrie Irving or Kyle Lowry?
Irving.
Okay, and maybe you make the argument.
Lowry's the better leader.
Okay,
Irving's the better
I get all that. And certainly can argue Bam is the better player than Ben Simmons, and I'm not going to argue that whatsoever. You then can go to the reserves and the leftovers on the Nets, although Seth Curry's playing really well. He was a smart addition in that deal in addition to Ben Simmons. That shooting, especially with Joe Harris out, is really helpful for them also. They have the size of Claxton off the bench. Yes, then they have a bunch of fossils otherwise. I agree with that. All I'm saying is last night...
And Seth Curry stops no one.
Yes, but he's a savvy, smart player also.
Okay, I get that.
And the Dragon.
But the Heat score and can stop you.
Okay.
The Nets score, they don't necessarily stop you.
Big O, Heat versus Nets, how many games in that series?
Heat in 6.
But it could go 7, right? You would not disagree with that.
It could go 7. I
Right.
don't think it will go 7 because I think the defense of the Heat and the depth of the Heat will overcome in that game overall. And I still think Miami is much more of a team than Brooklyn, and that to me is so much more important. You saw what happened. The Heat had all kinds of talent in 2010. But Dallas had the better defense and the better team at that moment. They were more in sync. They had more chemistry on both sides of the ball. And that's what outbalanced Miami. Miami did not have enough people around their stars to overcome all of that. And so there you go. So I just think that I look at the Nets and I say, yeah, there's talent, but it's still not a puzzle that's complete. Where I look at the Heat, if they're healthy, they're complete, they're deep, and they just added an all-star to the roster now at the end of the year, which that guy makes a huge difference if he's healthy.
But it's just interesting, and I have a story posted in the Sun Sentinel about all the tiebreakers, how it all works. If the Heat do drop to 3, and they do get number 6 in Cleveland, I'm up for that. And look, I've never before said, can't wait to go to Cleveland. In that case, I'd be excited to go to Cleveland. And yes, I already did book a hotel room for the playoffs in Cleveland, just in case, because we're getting close. We're just a little bit over a month away. All I'm saying is this. There will be so much scoreboard watching and so much standings watching. And I don't think there is any way possible that the Heat, until maybe 1 or 2 games are left in the regular season, that they'll have an idea on their playoff opponent. And remember, if they finish 1 or 2, they might not know their opponent until 2 days before the start of the playoffs because of the play-in. This is a really smart move by the NBA, the play-in. They have made every single game interesting. There will be very few games, save for Orlando, Detroit, or Houston, Oklahoma City, where there won't be something riding over the last month of the season. Kudos to the NBA.
Have you been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since you've been in Cleveland?
I went there. I'll tell you an inside story. They offered the Heat a guided, personal, rest of the museum closed tour. Nice. But the players are too busy. I wound up just going with myself and Ted Ballard, the producer of the Heat games. The two of us got this unbelievable behind the scenes, see everything tour, and it was fantastic. You know, there's two people who view Hall of Fames differently. There are people, if they think something isn't big, it's not great. But if you spend time at each individual exhibit and look at Springsteen's original lyrics and look at the songs as they were written longhand by the Beatles and
Yes.
really savor each moment, it's not an overwhelming place. It's not the Museum of Natural History. It's not the Smithsonian. It's a relatively small building. And you can see why they can't have the ceremony there because of the small auditorium. But if you go in there with the mindset of, I want to see everything, it probably takes more than a day to see everything. It really is an incredible display.
It is. It's freaking awesome. I loved every moment of it when I was able to go over there and just check out all the little facts.
The nuances, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's just so awesome. All right, Caleb Martin, I guess we got good news, huh? Because you don't even have to take an MRI. That's awesome.
You know what? That's sort of incredible with the hyperextended knee, because when Max Strus had it, they took an MRI 2 weeks. When Dwayne Dedman had it, they took an MRI 2 weeks. I think Caleb is such a gamer. Like, you know how it is, Big O, when you try to get a guy to come off the court, when you try to get a guy to go in the Paul Pierce wheelchair, and he goes, yeah, I ain't doing that. You know, I think Caleb's the kind of guy, he's been listed with a sore Achilles now for a month, and yet he shows up every game anyway. That's who he is, and that's the Heat soft spot in their rotation, backup power forward, because with Markieff Morris still out, there really isn't an answer beyond PJ Tucker. For example, if PJ Tucker would have been unavailable at the last minute and Caleb was out, I don't know, you're starting Max Strus there. Like, I don't know what direction you would go in. You don't really have much. You don't even have the Kaziak Pala option anymore. So that's still a little weak spot. I guess it would be Haywood Highsmith, and that's where they signed him. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's my problem with all of this, and that's the follow-up I have on this.
Okay.
We know he's been dealing with Achilles soreness. So now you get the hyperextension. And my problem with all of this, and you've been around as long as I have, and maybe even a little longer, obviously. I've seen it. You've seen it. Guys end up overcompensating for one injury, it leads to another, and it becomes an entire mess. And I get what you just said now, that you need him because of the lack of depth at a specific position. But man, you need him more for the postseason that we were talking about. You know, maybe you're better off resting this kid a little bit and getting him healthy, because you don't want one injury to compound and lead to another, which then could end up leading to something that's season ending.
No, and you pointed this out at a bunch of our Acura Pembroke Pine reports early in the season when you said, look, the Bam injury is not great with the thumb, but if he gets to rest the knee, there's something to be said for that. He came back gangbusters. Tyler Hero's sore knee before the All-Star game, not the best thing, but he came back gangbusters after that rest. Kyle Lowry, personal things I wouldn't want anyone to go through, but after those two breaks, he came back refreshed. I think the difference with a Caleb Martin is he's just such a relentless hustle player that he can push aside the pain, that he doesn't have that special skill set that if he can't push off on this leg, if he can't set up for the jumper on that, he'll still out-hustle you anyway. He'll tape it tighter. You know, he's the kind of guy, like, you know, from the Dolphins and other teams, when you go to the trainer, give me the shot. I'll take the shot. I think he's the guy who takes the shot and pushes through. And then in the offseason, we get a press release from the Heat. Caleb Martin's undergoing, arthroscopic surgery this summer because of a buildup of various things. He's a push-through kind of guy. He's a gamer. He's a Miami Heat player. Yes, you're right. When this first happened, I said to myself, you know what? A couple games off here might not hurt. And maybe the Heat spot him anyway. A matter of fact, Big O, keep an eye on these next two games. Tonight at home against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tomorrow at home against the surging, I think they've won like 6 in a row, Minnesota Timberwolves. But as I wrote in the Sun Sentinel, Eastern Conference games mean more because that could wind up being the tiebreaker against the Bucks and against the 76ers. I think the Heat put all their all their eggs into tonight's basket. Would not be surprised tomorrow if it's a night you see Heat light. If you see maybe Lowry get the day off. If you see maybe Martin get the day off. Because an Eastern Conference game, just like you talk about with the Dolphins during the season, you know, when they play a division game, it's big for tiebreakers. When they play an AFC game, it's big for tiebreakers. When they play an NFC game against New Orleans or something, it's just a game. I'll be really curious to see how Eric Spoelstra plays these two out. I know he won't say anything ahead of time. I know the players are out. We will be listed with injuries the Heat will say are legitimate. But when you get a back-to-back like this, it is curious. Minnesota is by far the tougher challenge, but you have to prioritize the tiebreakers.
How's Jimmy?
I don't know. I don't know if he's out there shooting snot rockets at anyone right now, so I'm staying the hell away from him. Look, I know sinus congestion sounds like, maybe something you should be playing through, but anyone who's had sinusitis or something like that, you feel like your head is an anvil. And if you feel like your head is an anvil, you're not going to be your same self. We've seen Jimmy when he wasn't himself. The game before he sat out, remember, in Brooklyn, he was just awful at the start of that road trip. So you know what? You have a certain degree of concern, with the way Jimmy played in Milwaukee. If you're not whole, don't play. I would expect Jimmy back. Antibiotics, a couple of games. Usually they say 48 hours later, you're feeling better. But you know what? I still would probably keep clear of him pregame as well.
I think he needs some Nature B every single day. He might be a little better, bro.
There you go. Get Mike on the phone from Hawaii and we'll sell some product.
Yeah, that's right, man. Let's get a little Nature B in his system. Should I start getting excited about Haywood Highsmith? Because the way Spo, when I'm reading your stuff and the way Spo's talking about him, like they love him. Like this isn't like, oh no, we're just signing him to fill a spot. It looks to me like, no, this is, there's a grander plan for this kid, and we think we can mold him into something as a 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, I would say get more excited for Summer League. It's like Kendrick Nunn signed last day of the season. Kendrick Nunn signed last day of the season. Who the hell is he? Oh, and you see him in Sacramento and Vegas. That's who he is. Omar Yurtseven signed the last week of the season. Who the hell is he? You see him in Sacramento and Vegas. That's who he is. I think that's the natural progression plan. I think we'll be seeing a lot of Haywood Highsmith as a featured player in Summer League. Could be really interesting. The Heat are going to have Javonte Smart out there in the two-way, probably or possibly Kyle Guy. He's in Sioux Falls now. He'll get more of a shot. Nice. Haywood Highsmith, they have a first-round pick. They're always going to find someone. And we might see a season 2.0, summer 2.0 over the Yurtseven. So I think Summer League will be really fun this year.
How about that, huh? Buffets and Haywood Highsmith, Sean. Yeah.
Oh, great. So I'm going to be dealing with Big O on the time difference at 6 a.m. on my Acura Pembroke Pines report and him going, I ate too much shellfish last night. I made a mistake. So I might be in living color and Orlando might be looking green.
It may not be shellfish. It might be something else because I do have to deal with the damn gout. So I gotta control the shellfish and meat intake. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if it's too much Mexican and beans, I'll be over here on the Skype. Okay, perfect.
There you go. And yeah, stay on the Skype if the beans are involved in it. All right. Tonight, Cavs Heat. We've talked about this in the past. This isn't a pushover type team.
Without Jared Allen, who's injured, the amazing height they have with Markkanen, Mobley, and Allen, 3 7-footers starting and making it work, that's compromised. I think, a couple of things. Butler and Adebayo missed the previous game, so this will be the first real matchup to a degree. It really comes down, and this is crazy that I'm saying this in 2022, containing Kevin Love. He's been very good against the Heat in the first two matchups. He's probably the prime competition, and I don't think it's close, with Tyler Hero for the Sixth-Man Award, but Kevin Love has been rejuvenated. I think being sent home from the Olympic team this summer really humbled him, and he accepted the role that he was reluctant to accept in previous years with Cleveland. He really is a hell of a story this year.
All right, we'll close it with this. The kid was misunderstood in the offseason. And to this point, I still watch people go back and use his sound bites, and they don't really actually use a sound bite. They kind of they kind of paraphrase his quote the wrong way when Tyler said, I would like to be talked about in the like of certain players. People then interpret it and said, well, Tyler thought he should be in that category, which is not what he said. But whether he said it or he didn't say it, what you got to do is give the kid credit. He has stepped up.
He's worked his way in. The leading candidate for the Sixth-Man Award. I think it should be unanimous this year. And I don't think he's getting enough love for Most Improved Player. I know you can say, hey, he was great 2 years ago in the bubble against Boston. He is a lottery pick, so there's a certain thing there.
That was a flash.
Jordan Poole's been great with Golden State. I get all of that. But I think Tyler Hero deserves more love for Most Improved Player because no one saw this coming. No one said at the beginning of the year, you know what, this kid might lead the Heat in scoring. So I think that says plenty as well.
Yep, I'm with you there. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. Catch his work at the South Florida Sun Sentinel, doing his thing every single day, and catch him 3 times a week here Of course, twice with the Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat report. And then, of course, there are Slomins Inside the Paint show every Wednesday from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Ira, thank you, my friend. Enjoy the basketball this weekend.
And we'll do it again on Monday. Thank you, Big O.
You got it, my man. There you go. The great Ira Winderman. All right. Looking forward to a little Heat action tonight against the Cavs.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.